to start.
Let's talk about that. We have some news. We need to talk.
Okay. Happy Valentine's Week, Ren fam, and what a better way to celebrate this week by talking about relationships and communication. I did a poll on my Instagram asking if you guys would rather hear a video about intimacy in relationships or communication in relationships. And to be honest, we were kind of hoping you would choose intimacy because that's a lot more fun to talk about. But the majority wanted communication, so we're sitting down here to do a video for you guys about what you guys want to hear about. I've wanted to make this video for probably since I started the channel, but it's just extremely hard to get us both sitting down at the same time with the 4 kids, because usually if I'm doing a video, that means he's watching the kids. But all of the kids are sleeping right now, which is a miracle, so I hope you enjoy the video. So I want to start off the video by just saying that as you watch this, whether you are watching this alone or whether you're watching this with your partner, the best way to approach watching this video is going to be for you to approach it for yourself. A lot of times when we're married or we're in a relationship, we'll hear something really good and powerful about bettering your relationship, and you'll think to yourself, oh, I really wish my partner could hear that because they really need to hear that. It's so much more beneficial if we think about what we need to change in the relationship, and I really feel like it's only when we can look at ourselves and change what we need to change that it can get better, because if we're constantly just pointing the finger at the other person, then likely they're doing the same and you're gonna get nowhere. So as you watch this, take in the information so that you can better your side of the communication.
Some of you have already tuned out the second that she said, only think about yourself and don't think about your spouse. I understand where logically you can come up with that conclusion to say communication is 2 ways, it takes 2 to fight, it's a marriage between 2 people. And I just have to pause for a second and say, logically you can come to those conclusions. That will not be helpful for your marriage. Time and time again, it's proven that you have to start on your own, working on yourself, before you can expect others to change. There's an old middle school saying, be the change you want to see in others. And that's the challenge of this video. I have learned a lot of techniques in communicating, a lot of different ways of communicating, and through those lessons learned and ways of changing, I've implemented them on my own, and Lauren wouldn't find out about it for years and years until she comes back over that material and sees how I've implemented it.
And by material, he means that he took a class in college and had an actual textbook with like charts and graphs and like written down ways of communicating that he took while we were first married. And so that was something that he implemented into our marriage without really even telling me that he was basically communicating from a textbook. So a lot of the principles that we use and the things that have really helped us were from that college class and from that textbook that he had used so long ago. So throughout this video, we're just gonna go through our personal keys that we feel are important for marriage and or even not marriage, if you're just dating, engaged, whatever that is, things that have helped us in our relationship and the things that we wish other couples would know in order to help them better communicate in their relationship.
One of the first keys I think is really important in life in general, but no different in relationships and marriage, is to never stop learning. Never get to a point in your relationship where good enough is where you continue to exist in. In this case, for communication, it's a constant viewing in your relationship, in yourself. How can I personally communicate better? And that comes down to reading, listening to good communicators. I once had a teacher that explained it in this way. You'll never find somebody who listens too good. I just can't be around that person because they just listen too well to me and they just hear everything I have to say. No one said that. And similarly, when we look at our relationships and when we look at ourselves, it's one of the biggest things I, to this day, strive for, is to listen well. I don't think it's something that you can ever perfect. I think it is something that you're in a constant state of perfection. You're getting there, but you're never there. Listen to people who talk and who communicate for a living. Read books, talk to people, talk to good communicators, the people who you think in your life listen the best. Ask how they do it. Personally, there's a book called Core Communications. This is the book that we alluded to that I took a class in college. I've often given this book out, bought it, shipped it to individuals who either are married, who are dating, individuals who are struggling with communication. I've given that text, the ways to listen, the ways to articulate yourself, to business people who are struggling. They're very passionate about something, but they can't communicate about whatever they're passionate about without it being overburdening and overwhelming, and they can't listen to people when they talk about whatever they're passionate about because they're not listening. They're just hearing and waiting for something to say. If I could leave with one thing about communicating, very specifically, something that I constantly am trying to do better, is that when you're listening to somebody, don't listen for a response, but listen for comprehension. Do you understand that person? Do you understand what they're saying? And then you focus on portraying that you are listening, because just because you are doesn't mean that they can tell, right? Is your body language there? Is your facial expressions there? Are you saying things to confirm what they're saying? Are you repeating what they're saying? Are you truly showing that? And we have friends who maybe they are good listeners, but they don't actually portray it. Or maybe they portray they're good listeners, but they're not actually listening. Never stop learning how to communicate. Never stop being better. Never stop trying to get to the next step. Never stop being a student of it.
I think oftentimes people think of communication in a relationship as kind of like this on or off switch. Like either we are communicating or we're not communicating. But if you are communicating, it's not just like one degree of communication. There are so many different levels of like we're communicating super effectively and really good, or we're communicating terribly. And then there's obviously the we're not communicating period, which is the worst of the worst. If you think about communication in that spectrum, it forces you to say we always need to be striving to communicate better. And again, looking at your own self and what you can be doing better in the relationship, because it takes two, obviously. And like he said, the other key is learning how to listen. I think this is probably one of the number one faults that people have, is just when we're communicating positively or negatively, we just don't know how to listen. And when you can learn how to do that, and really it's a discipline, it's forcing yourself to do something that you don't necessarily want to do, or it doesn't come natural. This was something that I struggled with a lot in the beginning of our relationship. I had to discipline myself to be a good listener. And so in communicating with my husband, specifically in arguments, you know, it's like when they're saying something and it's igniting this feeling inside of you that you just want to say something back because you're so, you know, angry or frustrated with what you're talking about, you have to force yourself to be a good listener. And when you both do that, it's going to create such better communication, because you're both able to get out what you want to communicate to the other person without being interrupted. The next point, and another one of the really most important pieces of communicating, specifically in a romantic relationship, obviously there's communication in every relationship, but we're kind of talking mostly about romantic relationships, is